The other important piece, and people take this as sort of one way or another, you've got competition, right? And people sometimes say, well, gee, I sit there and I want to kill my competition. Well, the word of co-opetition is important here. Yes, compete, but also work with competition. Because there could be two things to you too. As well as competitors, they could be the ultimate acquirers of your business, or you may want to ultimately acquire them. If you do not get a good relationship with your competition, you can find that can be quite difficult. I mentioned a bit earlier about suppliers, and we had, for example, IBM was one of our major suppliers in the CAS days. People would wonder why when they came into our offices, they saw all the awards we had on the wall, and I said, gee, why do you go for all those awards? And I said, well, awards give you credibility. My suggestion is win as many awards as you can and proudly display them, either on your website or on your actual place, because people relate to those. The other important piece is case studies. Again, you saying you're great, if one of your customers says you're great, it's a magnitude of 10 better. So we used to go for every award we could get. And yeah, did we win most of them? We won a fair share, and we invested in that. We also invested heavily in the PR machine that goes with when you win the award. The company that gives you the award wants to celebrate it, so they go there and invest in advertising in it. Now a lot of people thought that we spent a real lot of money in advertising. We didn't. We got most of it free from the fact of recognition, either from awards or from customer stories. So that's another big piece. Let me just see the other bits that I haven't covered. Sorry, I jump around, unfortunately. Sorry. Products, okay. And don't use me as a good example. One of my hobbies is gadgets, so I buy all sorts of gadgets around the place. But you've got to recognise whether the products that you're invented or you want to promote are things that excite you or will actually sell. So this is the whole difference between bleeding edge and leading edge. As I mentioned, we were sat there selling an authoring package for schools that we thought would be great. We didn't sell many of them because it was bleeding edge at the time. One of the best ways of ensuring that you don't overstay your welcome in this space is by looking at your customer base and seeing what they're doing. In the early days, we did a lot of networking using Novell. Do many people know who Novell is anymore? I mean, they were the networking company. Now, we could have stayed in that space and continued to watch the Titanic sink, but we said, well, it was moving to other areas, and we started to move with that. So you've got to be careful that you don't sort of get over passionate with your actual product when it's past its use by date. The other thing is you look at, okay, what excites customers? Sometimes it's worthy, and we had this advanced technology lab where we had all the toys. And why do you have that there? Well, one, it does inspire, which is important, but also customers want to see that you are doing new things. But don't confuse the selling of those things with what makes money. In some cases, the two don't work together. It's like, I call it the car showroom principle. They show all the flashy cars out front, but in reality, the ones they're going to sell you are the ones out the back. But that attracts you in. And I think that's important to understand, that you need to have some excitement, but don't confuse the excitement with the end game. The next area is investors, and I was fortunate when CAS was sold that we got funding. We got money from the sale, but as a result of that, I got a lot of people coming to me with ideas and wanted to say, well, will you invest in this, invest in that? And key thing there is you've got to understand the investors have to make a profit, and investors are taking a risk. And the biggest problem that exists right now, because we're in that space, we're frustrated. I could go back one step. I've got a new company now that's in the IT and telecommunications space. That company is ASX listed. I went out to the market to try to get some money for it, raise some capital. Even though Kaz made a lot of money for people, when I went out to the market this time, it wasn't that easy because it was post-GFC. People didn't want to take risks. So what we've done is I've started my own, Kaz Capital. We've got our own AFSL license and we raise money from my own business as well as other businesses. But what we're finding is people come in and say, yep, this is my great idea, here it is, and by the way, for $1 million, you're going to get 10% of this business. So they go, $1 million, worth 10 million. Tell me why it's worth 10 million. Well, you know, ours is a bit like Facebook, you see, because it does this and that. These are the problems. You've got to understand. And the biggest thing is that a small piece of a big pie is worth much more than a big piece of a small pie or no pie at all. So I get a lot of people, they walk out of the room because what we're offering is too small a percentage, or what they require is too high. And then the other piece is, oh, what are you going to use this money for? Oh, well, we've got to pay ourselves this sort of salary, and we've got to move into these offices and all. As soon as I hear that, you just don't go anywhere near them. If they're saying, yes, look, we need this money to actually grow our sales and marketing, we're going to do this and this, that's what we look at. So in the last, also the other thing we don't look at is, and by the way, we need to actually hire a whole pile more developers. That's not this part of the business. The last thing that I wanted to cover is what we see as an evolving business model, and that's the whole area of crowdfunding. And we're actually looking at it ourselves as a mechanism of testing whether the products are worthy of the next round. So very soon we'll be having our own crowdfunding, Australian crowdfunding site. I mean, I'm a subscriber to a lot of the American crowdfunding. I think the biggest one is Kickstarter. I don't know if any of you actually subscribe to any of their products. But what you find is they will test the water and say, there's a little YouTube done, the guy says, this is what I'm going to do, and by the way, if you invest, $50, you'll get one of them. If you invest $100, you'll get two of them, and I only need $10,000, whatever. That's great, and some of them get a lot of money. But unfortunately, they don't get a lot of support, and they have to find their own support with a lot of money. I have a couple of examples I'd like to use. One particular one is one I invested in this. This one. I don't know if you know what this is. If you've got an iPad, one of the biggest problems is getting the tactile response from the keys on the iPad when it comes up with the virtual keyboard. You put this over it and it actually gives you a tactile response, a bit like bubble wrap actually, but it achieves a really good response. So I saw this on the Kickstarter site. I thought, it's great. So I invested in it. And basically I invested in one, right? Now, what transpired, and again, some of these bits I'm filling in, so I'm not going to say it's exactly the way it worked, but the view that I got. So the guy got more money than he asked for. He started needing to build the stuff, and you get progress videos. It's a really good thing to watch. You watch some people, you see them really happy to start with, and over time the stress starts to show on their faces because they've got to produce so many widgets. So the guy says, yep, we've got the thing, the prototype done, this and that, it's going off to get manufactured. And then you get the first bad video. And Apple just changed the keyboard a little bit. So therefore, he had to make a change to get it working with the new iPad. That wasn't bad, we were able to work with that. The next one was where I felt really sorry for the guy. He took the stuff to get manufactured overseas, in China, in one of the Chinese, which is not bad, except I said, gee, I hope the guy knows how to protect his IP. Right? So, the last video that I actually looked at, so I haven't looked at them since, because I got my little product, was, so I should tell you one thing. The way that the Kickstarter mechanism works is you actually get the funding goes through an Amazon mechanism, and then that's how your money comes out of your account. And they actually use an Amazon mechanism to do some of the distribution in some cases. Thing came through, he said, looks like there's a fake version of my product that had come out before his product actually hit the market. And what was worse, he actually said that Amazon was selling it. And in fact, some people that actually were thinking of getting this actually got the fake because they didn't know, Amazon didn't know which was which. But this is the next part of this whole thing this is why I think you've got to really be careful in how you do the crowdfunding. Now, whether that product fake came out of a leak from the manufacturing plant or from how meticulous he was in describing his product on his site before it came out, I don't know which one it was, but those things have their danger and you have to be careful as to where you go with those. I'll give you one last example in that space. So one of the new areas is 3D printers. I think you guys, everybody sort of. So the Kickstarter thing on 3D printers came out, and this is one of the most, if you go onto Kickstarter, it's one of the most funded products. I think it got 10 times or it's an order of magnitude above what he wanted, right? And in fact, if you want to look at some interesting videos of stress starting to appear on someone, that's the best one, because this guy got a real lot of money. The thing is, the production cycle, because he had to produce so many, he just couldn't cope, right? So you got videos, you got emails from him saying, don't send me emails asking for when the delivery is, because I'm not going to answer them anymore. He got to that point. But anyway, as a buyer, this is where I made the mistake. So I looked at it and I thought, gee, I can get one of these. Oh, I get the whole thing, $500, right? So it arrived about 3 weeks ago. So this is strange. This box is sort of a flat box. This is supposed to be a printer, you know? So I opened it out and all the stuff fell out. It was complete, all right. The circuit board was complete, but all the thing was in bits. So I had to put it together. So it just gives you the perception. You've got to be careful in how things are described. Now, since then, unfortunately, because of the time he took to market, there are various other products fully assembled at price points not too different to what he was selling. And this is the sort of discussion I was at earlier. You might think you're going to come out with something cheap. Ultimately, unless it's really priced correctly, you're going to get to market where you're not going to have a product there anymore. So I hope the sort of things I told you are interesting. It's important, as I say, to understand value of what you're producing, how you're going to develop the brand, who's going to sell the product. And my last thing with the crowdsourcing is just be careful into how you use that, but it can be very valuable in testing the market and then going to someone and say, well, what do you do next? So the way we plan to use it is that if they say, look, this is a really great product, okay, put it through our site, let's see how many offers you get to sell it. If we see it going the right way, we will now invest in providing the right mentors to ensure you don't get ripped off in your IP and you actually commercialise it correctly. So that's one of the things. So just to tell you a little bit about gadgets, my last piece, I'm looking forward to the Skype thing because I actually bought one of those Spherio products, which is really good. If you want to see it later on, this is the product that the guy from Skype is actually going to be talking about. Thank you.